But you do have a new world. It's a new world with less funding for defense R&D and procurement, fewer new competitions, mostly through the big system. No more the little system. Less demand for wartime products and a new emphasis on affordability. And let me make one other point, which is, while we spent a lot of money on R&D in that 10-year period, in the war period, truthfully, in the increment, a lot of the R&D money, including companies I ran, wasn't on the next generation thing. It was on how do we incrementally improve vehicle A or platform B that's 30 years old for this war now? What extra little capability can we add? And we really didn't, in a way, spend as much on, the long-term future. I mean, heavy lift helicopters is a good example. We'd like to do more there, and we're doing it incrementally, but we just haven't spent the money on the long term. And we've sort of shortchanged that for a good reason, because we were fighting operations. So I think we're back to an era where a lot of the themes in the Aerospace Commission report resonate again. And we needed defense industrial policy in an era of austerity. We need acquisition reform really focused now on fixing the big system. We need to address globalization and things like merger policy, which is part of the defense industrial policy. Let me just end by touching on what's happened in these couple of areas briefly. And again, I think the Pentagon has a number of tools to address these issues. What's striking overall with this administration, and I think they've done a lot of good things, is they've tended to ad hoc fixes rather than holistic approaches in changing the acquisition system and all these kinds of areas. Now, again, I think that's because the operational imperative of wartime, puts a premium on dealing with that rather than the kinds of hard things to do to change a procurement system holistically. But on defense industrial policy, I do think the Obama administration can be credited with doing, quite a bit more. They've built up the Pentagon's analytical capability. They've taken defense industrial policy into account in shaping budgets and procurement policy to a degree that hasn't been done in the last 10 to 12 years. Now, in each of these, I think the funding issue is going to be the stability of funding. That will still be an issue, and that's going to be very hard. And they are trying to deal with that in the POM and the budget process, but it's a very hard thing to do. But they are trying to do it carefully and holistically and make some funding choices. And I think you'll see over the next year or two how they deal with that. I think there's a big weight on, because everyone wants to see what happens with this sequestration and whether that's going to stick or not. My own judgment is most of that's going to stick. The world hasn't come to an end. Congress did sequestration, and it's not like there was a holy scream, don't do this. And my own gut tells me that, particularly on the Republican side in Congress, where members who traditionally have been pro-defense, they also are anti-tax and they want low budgets, and those two tend to dominate. And I think we're going to end up with more or less along the lines of what you have. But let me just touch briefly to finish on a couple of areas. One is acquisition reform. There is a severe need to fix the big system, to rebuild the workforce, to install, and let me on the little system, to institutionalize the wartime little system so we don't lose the lessons of that, to shift away from a service-centric system to more integrated buying, to change the incentives for defense firms, but to make sure defense firms can make a profit and make money in all this. Yes, to access commercial technology, which the Commission pointed out. Unfortunately, the administration that's come to office with a major commitment in this area hasn't done as much. They have put out some memos on better purchasing power. They've moved to fixed price purchasing in some areas, but it's been done in this ad hoc way rather than institutional. I have confidence that the new Undersecretary of Defense for Acquisition, Frank Kendall, is about to be confirmed. He is focused on let's fix the culture and try to address these things, but it's a work in progress. And to be fair, for any administration, it's a work in progress. On globalization, it's a muddle through. We continue the muddle through. We have, the administration came out in favor of export control reform. It's moving forward with that. We don't see a lot of results yet. But there are a whole range of other regulatory regimes that affect globalization that have not largely been touched. There's industrial security rules, which relate to foreign ownership of defense firms. There's national disclosure policy, which limits our ability to share and release technology with allies we're fighting coalition wars with. I mean, if you look at the cumulative effect of all these policies today, we're fighting dumbed-down coalition wars with our allies because of our unwillingness to share this technology and release it on a holistic basis to allies and coalitions. And so part of what's happened here and what underlies this is the authority for this at the Pentagon is fractured between a number of different segments and offices. There's not much connectivity between armaments buying, technology transfer release policies, and I think what you need is kind of a new, well, I hate to put together new bureaucracies. You need to bring some of these components together at the Pentagon under a portion that focuses on globalization, if you will, to try to balance and make these judgments in a way that can lead us to reform. Because even if the administration's export control reforms go through, they don't fix the Pentagon problem. And most of the release decisions on technology get made in the Pentagon. And you have, the Iron Majors who are saying no to a lot of things. And even if the export control regime goes through, you're still killing, and the system is still hurting collaboration with foreign allies and between firms. And there's an enormous amount of work to do there. Finally, I just say on merger policy, the administration has put out some very good guidance that's clear about what to do about merger policy in an era of austerity when there's a tremendous incentive to merge, because if you can't grow organically through more sales, you're going to grow. The only other way to grow is through merger. And they realize that, but they put out guidance, I think, that's very sound and prudent that said, look, we don't want to see more M&A activity between the top 5 or 6 primes. We have enough consolidation there, but we're open to it at the subsystem level, and that's where you're seeing most of the activity. So I think on balance, it's a mixed bag. I think the themes from the Aerospace Commission report, while in a way it was put on the shelf during the rich man's world, are back. I think they're important themes. I think we've made a bit of progress here and there, but there's still a lot of work to be done. Thank you.